Sand carving farming, piercing books, and cannon fodder times the original work is a vicious villain of powerful officials. The Lao Mei family has traveled through time and into a refreshing farming novel. Their family is not the protagonist. Dad Mei Youqian. It's okay. We can counterattack and become the protagonist. Mei's mother, Wei Meili. That's right, that's right. We can counterattack. Meimei, bound to the clock-in system, hesitated to speak. Please check in on the female protagonist dividing the family, naming scene. You can get 5 days of lifespan and 5 pounds of wheat flour. Please check in for the famous scene of the female protagonist is hunting quite abundantly and receive a 15-day lifespan and 50 kilograms of rice. Please ask the host to clock in. Congratulations to the host for punching in and surrounding the villain. You can get a cute, loving, milky, and sweet little crazy dog, Meimei. Pupil earthquake. From the perspective of Mei Yu, the female lead of the original book. Mei Yu was delighted to see the ancient farming literature from the end of the world. She believed that with her own abilities, she would definitely live a happy life. But the road to happiness is always full of surprises. When she was forced to split up, she was already mentally prepared to fight a group of top-notch relatives alone, but her second uncle's family was even more cheerful than her. Mei Yu, who killed a big tiger alone on the mountain, originally wanted to handle it without attracting attention, but her tiger body trembled with a lying trough. Cow wow. Looking back, it was her second uncle's house again. Mei Yu == Meimei. Well, just get used to it, get used to it. Keywords of the novel. My whole family clock in and survive without pop-ups in the farming article. My whole family clock in and survive in the farming article. Download the complete TXT collection. My whole family clock in and survive in the farming article. Read the latest chapter. Chapter 1. Clock in and family name separation scene. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1 Clock in and family name separation scene. Mei Youqian. You unfilial son. How could you help the third family split up together? Will it be possible when your mother and father die? If you really don't have a relationship with dad, it's even more natural for me to split up. Mei Youqian, what you're saying is a curse on me and your father for dying early, right? You and Mei San-ma are saying that they will split up just because of such a loser. Mom, what you're saying is that there's only one girl in the third family, and I only have one girl at home. What's a loser? They were all born at the cost of their own wives' lives. Who would be willing to give you such a bad treatment, Mom? The voices of a man and a woman arguing in Meimei's ear were coming and going. She desperately opened her eyes, and what caught her eye were the spider webs mixed with floating ash on the dilapidated beams of the house. She forced herself up and sat up, her eyes still turning black in waves. Meimei couldn't help complaining that she was too weak. Barry Bao, are you awake? A soft female voice came from the side, and it took Meimei a while to turn her head to see that the person coming was her mother. However, suddenly her mother's appearance, which had changed from a landlady's explosive head to an ancient woman's bun, still made her feel a bit uncomfortable. But no matter how uncomfortable she felt, she didn't care about anything at this moment. She looked at her mother's outstretched hand and grabbed it with the last bit of her strength. Without waiting for her mother to say anything more, she said urgently, I need to go out. Why are you in such a hurry? Be good, drink this brown sugar water first. You don't know if your body is anemic or hypoglycemic, and it hasn't been long before you fainted. When your father hugged you just now, your body was as light as bones. Raspberry, be good, your father is taking care of you outside. Wei Meili ignored Meimei's struggle and handed Meimei the earthen porcelain bowl, which had been washed by her in advance and still had a gap, to her mouth. Seeing that he couldn't resist his mother's raspberry, he quickly drank the brown sugar water from the bowl. Mom, let's go out. After drinking, Meimei became more and more insistent on going out quickly. Listening to the increasing noise outside, Meimei knew that the scene she wanted to see was about to happen. Wei Meili carefully helped the weak Meimei out of bed and walked out of the door. As soon as I opened this door, I saw 7 or 8 people, old and young, standing in the small courtyard. The old woman standing under the eaves of the main room, with a flushed face and a sharp and piercing voice, was none other than her mother, Zhang. And behind her breasts stood a slightly younger woman with sharp-tongued and sarcastic faces, who was her eldest aunt, Jiang. At this moment, Jiang Shi was supporting her breasts, with a fox-like and tiger-like demeanor. When he heard the movement on Meimei's side, he also glanced at her. His sharp lips were rubbing against each other, and he didn't know what was muttering in Jiang's ear. "You don't need to listen, just look at the other person's disdainful gaze at you, and Meimei knows that she can't say anything good to her." Then Meimei turned her head to look at a young girl standing at the entrance of the yard. The other person's figure is similar to oneself, thin as paper, with a waxy yellow surface, but the astonishing radiance in their eyes is extraordinary at first glance. You can tell at a glance that it's the female lead. "Sai, what are you guys doing out here? Isn't there me here?" Standing at the door of the house where Meimei came out, Mei Youqian, who had just been chatting with Zhang, turned around when he heard the commotion and his face was filled with heartache. "Dad!" In front of outsiders, Meimei obediently called out her father, and then followed Meimei's mother to stand half a step behind him. Just like the protagonist Mei Yu, her parents are standing behind her daughter silently supporting her. Just as Meimei watched the 2 dogs, who had been scolded by Zhang, now huddled behind Mei Yu like quails, the third uncle and his wife shook their heads in their hearts. That's why she specifically reminded her father not to help the female protagonist separate her family before she fainted due to malnutrition after just crossing over. That's right, Meimei and his family have traveled together. I traveled to a farming text that Meimei had read before but had not yet seen the end, and unexpectedly bound it to a system called naming scene check-in. Due to an accident during a trip in the original world, their family died. In order to continue living, the family had to obediently complete the task released by this system. Among them, the main task is to witness the Son of Luck in the world of this novel, which is the famous scene of important characters doing some important things. Successful check.in can earn relevant rewards, including lifespan. Because according to the original plot, after the female protagonist caused a big family split, all the disasters that the female protagonist's family had suffered were transferred to their second wife. The daughter of the second wife, due to her young age and long-term malnutrition, was driven up the mountain by Mrs. Zhang one morning, hungry, to fetch pigweed, and then fell and died. But the place where she fell and died was very remote, and her body was never found. The second wife, Wei, cried blind because of her daughter's disappearance. Later, when Mei Youqian went to work as a laborer in the town, old lady Zhang accused Wei of being blind and wasting food, and secretly found someone to sell her. As for Mei Youqian, there was a flood here later, and on the way to escape from the wilderness, he was abandoned by the old Mei family due to injuries. Simply put, according to the original plot, the family of 3 who have the longest lifespan is only 1 more year. This unlucky cannon fodder family. When their family first got dressed, it happened that the original mother, while Mei Sanma was working in town, secretly sold his daughter in partnership with a black man named Yazi. That is the female protagonist whose soul pierced through. The female protagonist is a big shot in the apocalyptic era who tore up zombies by hand. As soon as she first arrived, she directly turned to killing Fang Zi. When Mei Sanma found her, she caused a big fuss and planned to split up. Therefore, the system hidden in Meimei's mind released the first task. Please ask the host to check in the scene of the female protagonist's family name separation, which can earn 15 days of lifespan and 5 pounds of wheat flour. What if the check.in is not successful? If the host fails, with your current physical condition, at best, you only have half a month of lifespan left. Meimei's face became very serious when she heard the system's words. Yes, with her malnourished body, even if it weren't for the accident of going up the mountain, it's possible that one day she wouldn't argue with her eyes closed. Therefore, this check that in matter is crucial for Meimei. Who knows when the next time I clock in? The system cannot even guarantee to her that every reward will have such a direct lifespan increase. Mom, don't look at my wife anymore. Let's split up. My third wife and I are going to split up today. Keeping his wife and children behind him, Mei Youqian continued the conversation just now. Just now, the temporarily quiet atmosphere in the yard was once again disrupted by Mei Youqian due to the appearance of plum berries. Mrs. Zhang was so angry that she pointed at him and cursed, "You unfilial son. I can understand the division of the third family. What family do you belong to? Have your father and I treated you unfairly in our daily lives? Didn't you treat us unfairly? Although my third brother and I named each other ox and horse, I dare say you really treat us like cows and horses. How do you treat my eldest brother, and how do you treat me and my third brother? Everyone knows this well." Speaking of this, Mei Youqian became even more enthusiastic. Today, he had to explain clearly the grievances of his original self and his family. My big brother won't go down to the ground in the hot weather. Mom, you let me go down with my third brother. The scorching sun shone brightly on both of us, and we didn't know how many layers of epithelium had fallen off. My older brother won't go out in the cold weather. If you ask my third brother to go up the mountain to pick up firewood, his hands, feet, and face will be covered in frostbite. Also, your great-grandson is a human being, and you can't have less than 1 egg a day. When it comes to your granddaughter's place, if she still wants to sell her rice bran and vegetables, she can sell them. So this time, the third family will split it up, and our family won't split it up. Maybe next time, when you're short of money, you'll sell my daughter. You fart. Mei Erniu. I don't know if Mei Youqian broke my heart, but anyway, old lady Zhang has already blushed with embarrassment. Oh, by the way. As the saying goes, the lifeline of a great-grandson, a young son, or an old lady. Big brother has the opportunity to learn craftsmanship from famous carpenters in the town. Old 4 used to memorize 2 poems when he was a child. Over the years, Old 3 and I have been working tirelessly to support him in his studies. The readers are still in their 20s and are still young, unable to withstand the pressure of lifting their hands or shoulders. What's going on? Do you plan to let me and the third child support him for a lifetime? Mei Youqian doesn't care if that old lady Zhang will be angry or not, he wants to talk about all the grievances he and Mei Sanma have suffered over the years. From his perspective, he looked at Mei Sanma who had said, "I want to split up," from beginning to end and then remained silent. Should he still split up? And he hasn't read any novels, nor does he understand what the female lead aura is. Omnipotent. It's hard to think about it just by relying on Mei Yu, a little girl, to divide the family. Otherwise, why does his daughter need to help herself? Can't he lend a hand? Mei Youqian, who has a strong ability to self-medicate, holds an absolute mainstay in this family separation battle. Mr. Lao Si said that Lao Si has accumulated a wealth of knowledge and will definitely become a scholar in the next 2 years. Do you still insist on separating families? At this moment, the old man Mei not only looked at him, but also took a puff of dry tobacco before speaking slowly. His cloudy eyes looked at his son, who was completely different from his usual reticence, with a complex expression in his eyes. Mei Youqian certainly knows how good a scholar is in this world, but these cannot shake Mei Youqian's thoughts. Divide it. The task of the system still comes first. Moreover, even without a system, he would score points just by watching a large group of people behave disgustingly. When he spoke, he didn't notice the gloomy gaze of the old man Mei, let alone the surprised look on the female lead's face. The second family, who has always been honest and silent in the eyes of everyone, surprisingly erupted so fiercely. Mei Youqian didn't care what others thought, but kept saying, "Dad, you see my wife and children are thin, and even the ones from the third family are prone to collapse when the wind blows. If things continue like this, our two families may not be able to wait for the scholar from the fourth middle school and starve to death. You unfilial son, you keep talking about death and death all day long. Are you really going to anger me and your father to death? If you dare to split up, I will go to the village chief to sue you for your unfilial behavior. Unable to wait for old Mei to ask slowly and systematically, Zhang couldn't help but curse at old Mei for being so determined to split up. Ha! I'll leave it at that today. If we don't split up honestly today, will we still sue the village chief? I'll take the daughter of the third family and directly report to the county magistrate. How does selling granddaughter to grandma count? If this matter gets too big, the fourth generation won't need to take the imperial examination anymore. After all, there's an old lady with a criminal record, he'll pass the exam, hiccup. Being threatened and intimidated by Mei Youqian, Mrs. Zhang and Mr. Mei rolled their eyes and were about to faint, causing chaos to erupt in the scene. Mother, grandmother. Without waiting for Meimei to say anything, Mei Yu, who had been watching Mei Youqian's big fight just now, finally stood up. Uncle Heir. Hey. Since Yi Nai has fainted and won't be able to leave home for a while, let's go to the county to find the county magistrate first. It's still early this day, so we should be able to walk there. Wait a minute. Just as Mei Yu finished speaking, Zhang Shi, who had closed her eyes over there, suddenly opened her eyes and took a breath in her throat, dragging the long-ending sound of slow down. Fluttering and enunciating clearly, I am afraid that if someone doesn't hear me and runs out, it will be terrible. Plum berry. Pup originally, they were all installed. The new book has opened up a pit. Sand sculpture. Shuangwen, not black original female lead. Cute and hilarious articles seeking comments, collections, and flowers, Momada. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Continuing clocking in. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Continuing clocking in with Meimei's father as a troublemaker. Family separation is so fast. Those who are horizontal are not afraid to die. The old Mei family still hopes that Mei Lao Si can lead them flying alone, no one can stop them. Congratulations to the host for successfully checking in on the female lead's family name separation scene, which has extended her lifespan by 15 days. 5 kilograms of flour have been distributed in the system backpack. Please take the initiative to check it. Upon hearing the system's beep, I don't know if it was Meimei's illusion. Just now, she felt the sensation of her legs floating, but now she felt a sense of solidity stepping on the ground. Is this the feeling of living an extra half-month? Oh, did this lifespan add to her? Realizing these changes, Meimei felt more tangible how bad her body was. Wait a minute, how is the lifespan calculated? Meimei quickly asked while the system was sending rewards online. It is calculated based on the host's physical condition and the correlation with the plot. Host, your family is just cannon fodder in the original work. If you don't show up for a long time in the development of the main characters in the plot, you will be optimized, commonly known as getting boxed meals offline. But with the emergence of our clock-in tasks, as long as you carefully type in each card, improve your presence, and strive to break away from cannon fodder roles, you will not be easily optimized. This statement means that they will not be easily optimized, which means that their family will have other situations that will be affected. Meimei feels powerless to roast. Currently, the main factor affecting lifespan is your physical condition, especially you, the host. Your body has been suffering from malnutrition for a long time since birth. If you don't improve your physical fitness properly and the chaos of the world chapter opens later, your family's survival difficulty will greatly increase. The material rewards we provide are also for the sake of your health. This was a friendly reminder from the system, but Meimei's face was full of confusion. Ha! Wait, isn't this some kind of farming text? When Meimei first read this novel, she hadn't finished yet when she saw that there was a flood happening here, and the female protagonist and her parents were preparing to flee in advance. Listen to the system, why do we still have to fight in the future? The first half is for farming, and the second half is for chaos. This author. Meimei was momentarily speechless. How dare she dare? Just farm and farm, will there be a war later? Host, you know, with constant natural disasters and merciless kings, it is difficult for the people to survive, and this world will naturally become chaotic. Meimei remained silent as she listened to the system's explanation. Although it makes sense, having her experience firsthand is another matter. Besides, she doesn't know what exactly happened afterwards. Do you have a complete book for me to read? I haven't finished reading the original yet. Meimei is eager to know the plot direction of the original work, and is somewhat anxious about the unknown and uncontrollable future. Yes, pay, you either. Oh, no, you don't have the money. The system's self-questioning and self-answering directly blocked all of Meimei's words in her throat. Meimei. If you don't give, then don't give. What is the meaning of your mockery? Raspberry, did you hear what Mom said? Meimei, who was almost flipped over by the system, was called back to her senses by Wei Meili beside her. What? Meimei clearly didn't hear it. Just now, she saw her daughter sitting by the bed muttering softly, probably talking to the system. She also wanted to understand the situation. Raspberry, have we succeeded with that check that in? Although this clock-in system is for their whole family to do tasks together, it was originally bound to Meimei alone. She must be present in person at all check that in scenes. Task release and rewards are equally clear to only Plumberry. This is also the reason why Meimei had just woken up and insisted on forcefully coming forward earlier. Seeing her mother inquiring about clocking in, Meimei nodded and said about the reward, but she didn't mention the lifespan and plot. I said, her mother probably needs to digest it for a long time. Her mother knows that her father must also know. The same explanation, Meimei needs to be repeated several times. At this moment, her father is not here, and Mr. Mei has taken his father and the female lead's family to the village chief's notary office to separate them. She has already started packing her luggage in the room with her mother. Let's talk about these things later when the family sits together. Compared to Meimei's worries, Wei Meili's eyes lit up when she learned that she had received a reward of 5 pounds of flour. She exclaimed excitedly, that night, I'll make you something delicious. Mom will make you pancakes and stir-fry some vegetables. How about shredding the black fungus, carrots, and eggs? The kind that is stir-fried in rapeseed oil. It's delicious to roll up the pancakes and eat. Wei Meili also wants to say something else delicious, but given the current conditions, she thinks she should be able to make the hutsai pancake. Knowing her mother's cooking skills, Meimei was also full of joy, and she really wanted to eat more. Wei Meili said, her eyes filled with pity. She reached out and touched her daughter's small face, which had become thin and disfigured due to long-term malnutrition, and said, why are you so thin? No, you can't. You should eat more in the future. Mom, you too. Wei Meili's body was also very thin, and Meimei felt heartbroken when she looked at it. Please ask the host to check in the scene of dividing the family property name and receive 5 taels of silver. Just as the mother and daughter were interacting warmly, the system unexpectedly released a task again, and this time there was no reward for lifespan. At this moment when the task was released, Meimei thought with her toes and knew that the separation of the female lead's family was not going so smoothly. Mom, let's go take a look at the village chief's house. Ah. What's wrong, is something happening? Meimei sighed and nodded, keep checking in. Meimei couldn't afford to go into detail now, so she let her mother support her and walk towards the outside, intending to explain what was going on with her on the way. As soon as they left, the two of them were startled by a pair of harsh 3 white eyes that caught their eye. After a moment of reflection, they realized that it was the eldest aunt, Jiang, who was standing at their doorstep and rolling her eyes at them. Meimei. Are you afraid of some serious illness? Wei Meili was about to get angry when she saw the firewood on the other person's back at this moment. Her eyes rolled and she chuckled, and she even took the initiative to say, "Oh strange, sister. Law, it's your turn to go up the mountain and carry the firewood today." This eerie tone choked Meimei, not to mention the person involved. "Didn't you get out yet? Didn't you say we split up? Why don't you get out?" Usually, heavy tasks like this are done by the wives of the second and third families. Today, due to the family split, isn't she the only labor force that can be used at home? Jiang opened her mouth and didn't hesitate. She wished she had scored a score and the two of them should have been kicked out of the house. She was so angry when she saw it. Upon hearing Jiang's hurried tone, Wei Meili's smile became even brighter and she didn't get angry at all. She held her daughter's hand and said with a smile, "Yeah, we can't wait to leave either. But, this separation also requires dividing the family's money before leaving, right? Except for silver, everything else in the family scores well. By the way, girl, let's go and see how much money your father has divided." When it came to money, Wei Meili couldn't help but see that Jiang's face twisted, and her heart was filled with joy. Ignoring the angry Jiang family in place, Wei Meili pulled her daughter and left first. As she walked, Wei Meili hummed the song, "Today is a good day," in her mouth, which infuriated Jiang Shi behind her. If it weren't for Mrs. Zhang often reminding her to carry firewood and come back to cook today before going to separate the family, she would also have gone to see the family over there. What if they really split the money between their two families? What will happen to their big house in the future? What will her son do? What are you looking at? A hen that doesn't lay eggs, I'm sorry. Watching the figure of the second-room person leaving, Jiang couldn't keep up because there was still work to do. Immediately, she turned her head and scattered the anger that had not been shed in time on the head of the third room next door. Miao, who had just heard the commotion outside and was about to take a sneak peek at what had happened, didn't expect that she would face Jiang's harsh and sharp face right after her appearance, and then be scolded by the other party. She was so scared that her face turned pale and she shrank back. Upon seeing this, Jiang looked disdainful and spat at her doorstep before leaving unhappily. She was taken aback. The third husband and wife are usually unable to fart with just one stick. How could they suddenly have a daughter and have an idea? Oh, the second room looks the opposite. The smaller one doesn't seem very noticeable, but each couple feels completely different from their usual temperament. What the hell? Ignoring the complex emotions of the wealthy Jiang family, as they left the Mei family's old mansion, Meimei and Wei Meili's hearts immediately relaxed. Coincidentally in March, the spring sunshine is bright and the grass is long and the birds are flying. Looking at the vibrant emerald color in the eyes, the curvature of the plum blossom's mouth has increased slightly. Passing by several farmhouses, I saw the green chives in their vegetable fields. Wei Meili added a new recipe for dinner. Before we move out, I'll go to the vegetable field behind the old house and collect some more leeks. Mom will wrap a fried leek dumplings for you in the evening. It's more delicious than fried cabbage rolls. The leeks in spring are very fragrant. The vegetable plots in Mei's old house used to be taken care of by me and the Miao family. If we split up, it's not too much to divide the dishes, right? Seeing that Wei Meili has already set her mind on Mei's vegetable garden, Meimei is sure that her cheap grandmother will curse again. However, Meimei is not worried about her mother at all, and her mother is not something easy to mess with. According to her father, Hua, her mother has been studying Sanda and dancing square dance since retiring in the past 2 years. With her agile figure, her father dare not provoke even a serious fitness enthusiast. When the time comes, someone will really cause trouble for her mother. It's definitely not her mother who will suffer. But speaking of which, would her mother be falsely accused if she injured someone? It was only a 10-minute drive to the village chief's house, and Meimei's mind had already reached the scene of dealing with the blackmail person from Mo Shio against the court. The mother and daughter had just arrived at the village head's doorstep, and outside the courtyard, there were already many villagers watching the excitement, making a scene of commotion. Meimei and her wife haven't entered yet. Meimei heard her father's voice again. That's it. You're sending beggars. Dad Mei. Don't worry. I will definitely divide this family today. Mei you. Well, don't snatch my lines. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Hard check-in conditions. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3 Hard check-in conditions, is that it? You're playing like a beggar. Mei's rough and wild voice was heard clearly by Meimei through the village chief's courtyard door. You want us to sweep out the door today for a penny or two? There's no way. Second brother. You bastard, this is not a separation. You're taking the lives of me and your father. Listening to the angry scolding of Mr. Zhang and the heart-wrenching cries of Mrs. Zhang, the kind-hearted people standing at the entrance of the village chief's courtyard were all amazed by the excitement. Villager 1. I'll go, Mei Youqian can do it. I haven't seen such a horizontal scene before. Villager 2. Who said it's not? It's so honest on weekdays, but so ruthless today. Villager 3. Nonsense, who would have to leave immediately if they were to split up and distribute such small things? Who else would not do it? 1 or 2 silver coins, and you want our whole family to roll up the bedding and go out today. Mom, you're taking the life of my whole family. You have the money to buy a silk long shirt for Lao Si to attend the poetry party, but you don't have the money to split the family. How could such a thing happen? Compared to selling miserably, it would be different from anyone else. Mei Youqian's loud voice was 2 points louder than Mrs. Zhang's. Mother, why are you so cruel? Is your youngest son's clothes more important than our family's lives? It's okay if we don't have enough to eat at home. From now on, if we split up, we won't be able to eat or live. This is taking the life of our family. If you don't want me to live, just say, my whole family will be hanged at the doorstep, from beginning to end. Meimei didn't hear the voice of the female lead, just her father shouting alone. Hearing this, Meimei became somewhat skeptical about life. System, do I have any mandatory requirements for the scene of property division objection in my check that IN? System. Yes, the female lead is present. Meimei. Silence is fleeting, and the movements of the plum blossom are swift. Meimei immediately squeezed into the crowd and rushed into the yard, watching her father's verbal battle and fierce man shedding tears in that person. She quickly took a step forward and walked behind Mei Youqian, supporting her strong back to catch her breath. After gasping for breath, she had already learned from her mother to directly squeeze the flesh from her father's waist and whispered, "Dad, it's over. Let the female lead play." Well done, this is the highlight scene of the protagonist. Look at her father like this, where is this still the highlight scene of the protagonist? The system is so casual, their family is all serious people and cannot follow casually. Oh. Listening to his daughter's words, Mei Youqian looked directly at Mei Laosan and pointed at them loudly, shouting, "Laosan, do you have any objections to dividing 1 or 2 silver coins between our 2 families, 10 kilograms of wheat and 50 kilograms of corn and grain, 2 acres of dry land and 1 acre of paddy field?" Mei Sanma has lived for 30 years and never had a day as wonderful as today. He was never able to speak, but now he stands there hesitating for a while without saying a reason. Mei Yu sighed in her heart and went straight to the village head next to the old man Mei on the opposite side, saying, "Spring harvest has just passed, and every family has little surplus food. The distribution of grain is limited, and that's all for the silver money. Grandpa, are you planning on how our family will survive?" Meimei's eyes lit up as soon as she saw the female lead say these things. Here, finally it's the female lead's turn to play. No one insists on you splitting up either. Grandma Zhang immediately became unhappy when she heard that Mei Yu still despised Xiao. With a black face, she said again, "You damn girl, do you have a say in this movie? Zhang stared at Mei Yu like he was looking at a broom star. A large part of the trouble they had at home today was because of Mei Yu. Zhang's heart grew even angrier, secretly cursing those people for their incompetence. Those who got it could still run away and come back to Huohua and his whole family. Mei Youqian didn't look at Zhang's black face like the bottom of a pot, but continued, how do I remember a few days ago when my milk only earned 5 taels of silver? As soon as these words were spoken, the village chief present and the villagers who were blocking the entrance to watch the commotion all looked at Zhang with surprise on their faces. In recent years, 5 taels of silver are quite a lot, which is enough to save a family more than half a year to chew on. If there were these savings, it would still be understandable, but listening to the meaning of the Mei family girl, is this what she has recently earned? Even the mischievous old lady, who was watching the excitement outside the courtyard, exclaimed in a strange yin-yang tone, oh, what kind of work did you earn 5 taels of silver from? These 5 liang are the money given by Renyazi. Because Mei Yu killed these black fangs, the silver was naturally not pursued and remained in Zhang's hands. You. Zhang's lips trembled, and he couldn't directly make it clear. At this moment, Mei Yu was using this silver to talk about things, which could be considered a threat. So much money, milk. Grandpa just shared the silver and said it was saved by the family. With the extra 5 taels, you don't plan to buy clothes for 4th uncle, do you? Upon hearing what Mei Yu said, her father burst into laughter, completely forgetting Mimi's warning to keep things safe. He then followed the female lead's words and said, Emma. Arya, what are you talking about? How could you be such a person? Mei Youqian's eerie high hat was put on Mrs. Zhang's head, and she opened her mouth. For a moment, she didn't know what to say. Immediately after, Meimei saw his father's smile on Zhang's face becoming increasingly lewd. Mother, my dear mother, why are you so good at making money? This way, it's just right. We don't need much either. Let's split the 2 families into 1 or 2. I don't mind if you and our father use the extra money as pension funds or take care of the boss and the 4th son. Ha ha ha. Speaking to herself, Meimei saw that her father had already arranged the extra 5 taels of silver. Regarding this, Meimei turned her head to look at the female lead, completely dumbfounded when she saw that she also had no objections on her side. This scene, the female lead. You. And now Zhang is almost infuriated by Mei Youqian's shameless behavior. She pointed trembling fingers in the direction of Mei Youqian, intending to curse, but Mei Youqian took 3 steps and 2 steps forward, wrapping her outstretched fingers with both hands. Zhang. Zhang wanted to draw from Mei Youqian's hand, but unfortunately, this person's hand was so strong that she couldn't even move it. Mom, I know, you feel sorry for us. In order not to drag us down after the 4th year, you and Dad tried every means possible to separate us. As if unable to see Zhang's struggle, Mei Youqian's self-moving acting skills were slightly eye-catching in Meimei's close observation. By the way, I also shifted the blame for today's family separation to the 4th person who is studying outside. Zhang was so angry that she leaned back and quickly tried to deny, no, I didn't. I understand. Mom, you don't have to say I understand too. Zhang, sure. You understand the bullshit. Her father interrupted Zhang's conversation once again. This silver was agreed upon just now, and each of our families will have 1 or 2 more. If you really can't see the rest, you can privately make up for it. There's no need to say anything more here. What if it were to make the boss and the 4th person feel so uncomfortable when they hear it? After all, the palms and backs of the hands are all flesh, and you don't want to see the 4th person feel sad, do you? After talking for a while, the key is still behind. This brings up old 4 again. Besides, this incident has caused too much trouble, and even the neighbors at the door are watching. It's not a good impact. Mei Youqian's expression as she looked at Zhang became more amiable, while Zhang's face turned pale with anger and his lips trembled, unable to say a complete sentence. Zhang Shi. You. Mei Youqian. I am here, Mom, everyone. The village chief Wu Yukai, who was a witness on the side, looked at his nose, and heart, and quietly pinched his goatee without saying a word. They are all from the same village, and everyone has their own situation in mind. They don't believe that even if their parents are still alive and separated, there is nothing fishy about it. Mei's words cannot be fully believed, so everyone became even more curious about the truth and waited for Mrs. Zhang to speak up. In the end, the village chief still came forward. They were all from the same village, and there was always some dignity to be preserved. So he glanced at the silent but pale-faced old man Mei beside him and asked, Yaozu, it's not a big deal to delay this matter. How about dividing them into 1 or 2 more families? Well, there are also 2 families who need you to notarize the elderly care for me and their mother, village chief. After old Mei finished speaking, his whole body seemed to have been drained of energy and spirit. At present, this situation is really irreversible. Looking at the group of people at the gate who had not yet left to watch the excitement, he realized that this was caused by Zhang's provocation and immediately glared at his old wife, asking her to shut her mouth. Mrs. Zhang, who was glared at by her own man, finally became honest. But the more she listened to the village chief talk about the separation, the angrier she became. She looked at her second son who was not far away with big white teeth shining in the sunlight, and finally rolled her eyes, which really made her dizzy. Ding! Congratulations to the host for successfully checking in and dividing the family name scene. 5 taels of silver have been distributed in the system backpack. Please take the initiative to check. After hearing this news, Meimei was in a daze. Remembering her father's crazy show just now and the way the female lead was watching a play, Meimei was already prepared for a failed check. I didn't expect the reversal to be so fast. System, are you sure I checked in successfully? Meimei couldn't help but quietly inquire whether the system had let in water. Host, are you questioning my abilities? No. Where is it? I'm just curious about what this standard is. You mentioned earlier that the female lead is present, which is a bit vague. Is it possible that in the future, the female lead will be present when checking in? Not necessarily, according to the development of the original plot. Besides the female lead, the male lead is also acceptable, or the ultimate villain BPSS is also acceptable. As long as the protagonist is present and belongs to the original plot, the development of the scene can adapt to the development of the plot or greatly improve the protagonist's satisfaction. The latter is only limited to the male and female protagonists. Except for the antagonists, the system's response this time was more detailed than last time. Of course, you have to be present, even if you clock in and participate successfully. After listening, Meimei stopped talking. She felt. Why did the system say so much and still seem a bit casual? The famous scene in Meimei's heart. The female protagonist kills in all directions and fiercely hits the best. A real-life scene. Her father is throwing tantrums and fighting against the best, and the female lead is holding her hands in her pockets and looking up at the sky. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. New Houses. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4, New Houses. With the notarization from the village chief, Meimei and the female protagonist each received 2 taels of silver, 1 acre of paddy field, 2 acres of dry land, as well as 10 pounds of wheat and 50 pounds of corn after dividing their families. Afterwards, the village chief doesn't care about the distribution of miscellaneous items such as pots, bowls, ladles, and pots, and leaves them to go home and tidy up on their own. However, old Mei and the others were also angry. After dividing the silver and land deeds in front of the village chief, they threatened to go back and tidy up before leaving the old house. Look at this, the Mei family doesn't want to take in either of them tonight. But at this moment, there are not many people in the group watching the excitement who are making a fuss over Meimei and his 2 rooms because of old Mei's actions. Wei Meili, who stood in the crowd without moving forward, could see this clearly. Nowadays, not everyone's family is inhabited by a few brothers and elderly people. Even though many people know that Mrs. Zhang and Mr. Mei are usually biased, their fingers have different lengths, and none of them dare to say that their home is as flat as a bowl of water. Do they have to split up like the old Mei family if they don't agree? Therefore, for Mr. Mei and his family who separated and directly drove them away, there were still many people in the village who felt it was reasonable to drive them out if they were so angry. After the onlookers dispersed, the female protagonist took the opportunity to ask the village chief if there were any vacant houses temporarily living in the village. Even if the homestead is applied for immediately, building a house is not a day's work. They urgently need the existing house to live in, and then move in after building a new house. Village Chief Wei Youqian is not unreasonable either. He was just going to say these things. He mentioned two houses, one at the beginning and one at the end of the village. One is a dilapidated adobe house, and the other is a hunter's cabin near the back mountain with occasional wild beasts. Meimei remembers in the original work that the female protagonist's family chose a wooden house near the back mountain at the end of the village, so she had planned to remind her father to choose the village head, but her father was obviously faster than her. And he also took the initiative to choose the adobe houses in the village. The village chief added, that house has not been inhabited for many years, although the quality of the house is also unsatisfactory. However, the terrain is good, and if we build new houses on it in the future, it will be much better to tidy up. Mei Youqian, the dilapidated adobe house in the village, has memories in his body. The former owner was also assigned to this Jinshui village after his family died due to a disaster in his hometown. After becoming a relative, he took his wife to another place to do business and never returned. Years later, only those who returned from the village brought back the news that the homeowner and guest had died in a foreign land, and his wife had also remarried. Even if the location is close to the village stream and the terrain is high, there is still a bamboo forest behind the house. If you tidy it up properly, it is indeed a good place, as the village chief said. But the villagers were superstitious that the house was unlucky, and the people who lived there had a bad identity. In the end, there was no good ending, so the house has been abandoned ever since. The application for that piece of land is not expensive to go through the procedures in the town. After Wu village chief finished speaking, he secretly glanced at the expression on Mei Youqian's face. Meimei also secretly glanced at the village chief over there. She was quite confused. The village chief said so much. Is this really hoping that their family lives there or not? Thank you very much, village chief. Once the days are settled, the boy will come to my door to thank the village chief. Mei Youqian did not immediately respond to the matter of choosing a new address to build a house after living there. Wei Youqian did not say much about this, but only asked them to go home and tidy up properly first, not to have any more trouble, and live a good life. Just what happened to their old Mei family today is enough for the villagers in Jinshui village to chat for a while on weekdays. After dividing the family property and determining a new address, Mei Youqian proudly led the three of them back to the Mei family's old house to prepare for the move. When they returned to the Mei family's old house, they found that the door was tightly closed. The bags they had packed before had been thrown outside, including the dozens of pounds of grain. Although this bundle seems to have been piled up now, the dust rolling on it immediately shows how it came out. Looking at the hostess packing up the same burden outside, what else can't be seen? Watching their two families' luggage anxiously, the Miao family saw their own man, daughter, and the second bedroom family all returning. They immediately blushed, opened their mouths, and spoke in a voice that was comparable to the snorting of mosquitoes. Anyway, Meimei didn't hear what she was saying, but Mei San Ma heard it clearly and helped Miao explain to everyone that Mrs. Zhang had come back earlier and asked De Fong and them to help move together. Oh, it's quite tactful. Isn't it just sweeping out the door? Mei Youqian felt that the cautious behavior of the Mei family was something they could do. He looked up at the gradually rising sun and took the initiative to pick up the 2 packages of the family of 3, which he had barely gathered with food, and walked towards his new home. However, before leaving here completely, Wei Meili still remembered the fried Chinese leek dumplings that her daughter missed. She asked Mei Youqian to tidy up his luggage in one step, while she invited Miao from the 3rd room to pick vegetables in the vegetable garden behind the old house. As the female protagonist Mei Yu, who has traveled through the end of the world, she is definitely a top priority for food. When she heard that picking vegetables, she also wanted to follow and see. Seeing this, Meimei naturally followed suit. Seeing Meimei approaching, Wei Meili stared at Meimei, who looked like a bean sprout, and said, "Don't move around, sit under that tree." Her daughter's figure is too rough now. She is 12 years old and not as tall as her 8-year-old child. Her face was yellow and she was so thin that she couldn't bear to let her work on the ground. Although Meimei didn't mean to go down to the ground, it was just that her mother spoke too quickly. She followed her mother's words and walked to the shade of the locust tree at the entrance of the vegetable garden to sit down. Then I saw Wei Meili and began to harvest the leeks, which was her goal on this trip. Arya, Sandy Mei, look at how beautiful the spring vegetables in the garden are. This is all thanks to me and your younger siblings, and we deserve this separation. Not only the chives, but also the rising trend of the small cabbage on the side is very encouraging. Wei Meili kept moving her hands and talking a lot, saying, "Third brother and sister, look at how tender these little cabbage are. This evening, we'll have a pot of hand-rolled noodles and add a handful of cabbage to make it very fresh. Or stir-frying is also delicious. Also, look at how tender these chives are. The first batch of chives in spring is fragrant when stir-fried. I'm going to make a fried Chinese leek dumplings for my daughter tonight. How about you?" All right, I haven't figured it out yet." Miao's voice was still small, but there was also a hint of excitement and anticipation as she listened. "It's okay if we haven't figured it out yet. We deserve all the credit for these dishes growing." Wei Meili's left and right sentences of, "You and I owe you credit," were like brainwashing, successfully activating Miao, the soft bun, and a fresh and brilliant female lead who was not yet clear about the situation but also very envious in front of her. So, the actions of Miao and Mei Yu in their hands became increasingly fierce. When the plum blossoms see this, they always feel like they're not picking vegetables. Who picks vegetables like digging someone else's ancestral grave? End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Unexpected Joy. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Mei was looking at the busy trio in the vegetable field when suddenly a dark shadow flashed past her. Meimei suddenly became vigilant and stood up suddenly, but her eyes darkened. She quickly helped the locust tree with her hand and cursed her poor physical condition for dragging her feet at a critical moment. Immediately before her eyes turned black, a familiar shout rang in her ear. "Ouch! I'm dying, you thieves! The person who came is Aunt Jiang. Damn it, you guys are making this vegetable field so. You! Hurry up and have someone." Ah! After Meimei's gaze gradually regained, she saw her mother sitting on Jiang's body in the center of the vegetable field. But this didn't stop her mother from picking up the leeks on the side vegetable bed. Jiang was so angry that she lay on the ground and couldn't stop cursing her 2 sisters-in-law, shouting that they were both separated and had unclean hands and feet to steal vegetables. Regarding this, Wei Meili pretended not to hear at all and even instructed Miao, who was scolded by Jiang for slowing down her hand picking vegetables, to the side. "I said, third brother and sister, you should take more. Today is our first day moving out, so we can't help but open fire and have a good meal tonight." Wei Meili drew a big cake for the timid Miao family while pulling out a rotten vegetable and stuffing it directly into Jiang's mouth. She, as a sister-in-law, has never done anything serious before. She likes to have her eyes fixed on what other people are doing, and then yell and scream. He's used to it. Look at what else needs to be taken away in the field, hurry up. When the old lady calms down and gets up from the bed, she will have to fuss again. Hurry up, make a quick decision. What else can we take? Seeing Miao, who was too scared by the Jiang family to continue moving, Wei Meili could only administer harsh medicine and threaten that Zhang Laozi would come over later. Now Miao was really anxious and quickly replied, the sprouts of the Chinese tun tree by the yard are also very tender at this time. Oh, there's also the Chinese tun head. Wei Meili, who used to love eating it in spring, said with a bright eye. These scrambled eggs are super delicious. By the way. Hurry up, we'll also take the eggs from the chicken coop here when the time comes. Pooh, pooh, pooh. No. As soon as she heard that they were still going to take eggs, Jiang just spat out the rotten vegetable and started screaming. That's my son's. I'm sorry. Wei Meili didn't get used to the Jiang family, so she directly compared her head and said, those chickens are all served by me and my third younger brother and sister, and we should receive them separately. What's wrong with taking a few of your eggs? If it gets to the village chief's place, we can all take the old hen. How dare you? Do you dare me? In short, regardless of whether it is reasonable or not, if her mother wants a piece of mud in this vegetable field, it must also be deserved. Meimei couldn't help but tilt her head and happened to see the female lead beside her. Mei didn't know where she was carrying two baskets and took a few steps forward to hand them to Miao and Wei. Mother, please pick more of the fragrant Chinese tun head and give some to Aunt Air, after all, Aunt Air is not available now. As she spoke, Meiyu's gaze fell on Wei Meili, who had tightly pressed her aunt under her, and her eyes were full of approval. This second uncle and the second aunt's family are really wonderful people. Congratulations on the check that IN seen. Premium at a loss. Reward the host with 1 or 2 silver coins, which have been distributed to the system package. Please check it promptly. Leng Buting heard the sound of the system and Meimei was stunned. When did you come for the check that IN task? Why did you suddenly clock in? Meimei whispered to the system, what's going on? Is it in this original work? A plot that has been mentioned, but due to the significant increase in the protagonist's satisfaction caused by the current scene, the original plot has been expanded, so it is determined that you have successfully checked in. After explaining this, Meimei also understood. She couldn't help but raise her hand and touch her chin, thinking. It turned out that this check that IN not only relies on system publishing, but also on self-creation. Wei Meili, carrying a basket of victory products, separated from Mei Yu and her daughter at the intersection and rushed back to their new home. Even though their family had been mentally prepared beforehand and knew that the house was in disrepair and dilapidated for a long time, they couldn't help but exclaim with their own eyes. This is too shabby, isn't it? The fence outside the small courtyard, which was about 40 square meters in size, was in a dilapidated state, and anyone passing by felt frightened at the first glance. The ground in the yard is covered with bluestone slabs, and the moss and weeds between the slabs are growing wild. As they enter the yard, they place their luggage and picked vegetables on the stone table in the middle of the yard. Wei Meili even pulled Meimei to sit on the wooden pier next to her and let her rest. Meimei lowered her head and saw some moss and a few small mushrooms staining the bottom of the wooden pier. Meimei. This house is really dilapidated in every aspect. At this moment, Meimei's father walked out of the far left room of the row of 3 grass houses that their mother and daughter were carefully examining. A disheveled and rustic person, it seems that the interior is also very unbearable. How to say it? If relying on Mei Youqian's temperament, he would never live in this house. How can this house achieve that the middle roof is gone and the roofs on both sides are still alive? This house is even more dilapidated than the one I used to live in when I was a child. Mei Youqian couldn't help but draw this conclusion. He was born in a time when material conditions were extremely scarce, and he had lived in a thatched cottage when he was a child. But he really hasn't seen such a broken one before. These 3 rooms are just over there, and the kitchen can still make do. After Mei Youqian finished speaking, he couldn't help but give a few moans, using his hand to scrape and pull his hair, and some small dirt fell out. Meimei and Wei Meili knew from their appearance that the house was in a terrible condition. Listening to her father's description, it was truly as good as the outside. The earthen Kong in the room with it also collapsed, and the window cracked all the way to the bottom of the wall. Not to mention the problem of air leakage, we are all afraid that if we fall asleep at night, the house will collapse and our 3 families will have nowhere to run. Listening to Mei Youqian's description of the room on the right side being so terrible, Meimei now understood why her father was just in this left room. However, the stove in this kitchen here is still good, and there's a pot. In the latter half of the sentence, Mei Youqian lowered his voice in excitement as he stood in the yard. He said, "When I first entered, I was startled. Oh my goodness, there was a pear blossom cat squatting in that corner of the kitchen, and he saw me meowing. I haven't been scared to death yet. It ran away on its own and kicked its legs vigorously, directly kicking out the oilcloth wrapped in iron tools underground." Speaking of excitement, Mei Youqian even patted his thigh. "There are kitchen knives, iron pots, firewood knives, sickles, and so on, all placed together. As soon as I heard these raspberries, my eyes lit up. These were all unexpected joys. Old houses have stories to tell. The new book has opened, seeking collection, seeking comments, seeking flowers. Momoda. Chapter 6 is here again. You are listening at novelfull.audio. I think this is also because the original owner and his family knew they were going on a long journey, and they were probably thinking of returning it. That's why they put away some important metal objects in the house instead of selling or leaving them unattended. Seeing the original owner's thoughts, Mei Youqian then remembered the person who had never returned, and the feeling of passing away in a foreign land was full of sorrow. These things were buried here forever with the abandonment of the house, but they actually made their family cheaper. I used to think about how your mother would cook tonight without a pot. Now that we have a pot, the biggest challenge has been solved. Now, we don't have to go hungry anymore, Mei Youqian was naturally optimistic and quickly emerged from the sadness of spring and autumn just now, smiling like a big fool. Virtue. I can't stand Mei Youqian's lack of integrity and Wei Meimi's beauty anymore, and I looked at her angrily. It's like when I've been starving you too for not cooking. Immediately after, Wei Meili instructed her husband to quickly clean the kitchen, while she herself took out a large portion of vegetables and the only egg from the basket. I'll go around the neighborhood and borrow some seasoning to come back. Wei Meili grew up in the countryside when she was a child, and the interaction between neighbors was much closer than later living in the city. It was common to hold hands with each other. As Wei Meili looked at some watery vegetables in the basket, she also calculated that some of her social relationships had been rebuilt. Good raspberry treasure, sit quietly in the yard and pick up the vegetables. Wait for mom to come back and cook delicious food for you. Meimei looked up helplessly and asked her mother to touch her little head, but she said she was not young anymore and couldn't really be comforted like a child in the future, but Wei Meili had a perfunctory taste. Oh, this hair is so prickly that it feels like dry grass. Meimei. She thinks her mother can skip saying that. But I'm not afraid, mom will definitely keep you smooth and smooth. Meimei wanted to remind her mother that this smooth and smooth is not meant to be used that way, but she acted too quickly. After finishing speaking, she left with a basket on her shoulder. Watching his mother leave with a mournful gaze, Meimei sat on the wooden stump in the yard, basking in the warm sun, obediently cleaning out the rotten leaves and roots of the chives and bok choy. As the work in her hand continued, she began to recall some details from the novel she had read. After careful consideration, I still can't come up with anything. System, can't you really read the full text? Meimei kept searching for the system to inquire. No, but later on, as the host, you can use some of your rewards to redeem and unlock the full text. How many specific rewards are there? 5,000 taels of silver plum berry. Good guy, opening your mouth means 5,000 taels of silver. Their family of 3 currently only has a total of 8 taels of silver. The cost of predicting the future is so great. Although they have less luggage and less room to tidy up during this move, there are really quite a few things to do in between. Mei's father first cleaned the kitchen floor, cleaned the stove together, and then went to the bamboo forest behind the house with a machete, directly chopping about 10 bamboo pieces that were about the size of adult arms back. Afterwards, Mei Youqian made a few bamboo bowls, chopsticks, and water cups as temporary daily necessities in the yard under the gaze of Meimei. During this process, Meimei suggested that her father make another set and later give it to the female lead and her family. The situation of the female protagonist's family is similar to that of her own, probably lacking everything. The nearest town to Jinshui village also has 8 miles of land, and the earliest time she wants to buy something is tomorrow. Therefore, these things do not need to be said to be unpopular. Would it be better to take this opportunity to improve the relationship between the two families and give them more opportunities to check in? After completing these tasks, Mei Youqian also made 2 brooms, one big and one small, using bamboo to sweep the yard with Meimei. Wei Meili, who had successfully changed some seasonings and returned, expressed great satisfaction with what the 2 of her family had done. Sure enough, with a different environment, people's eyes have come to life. It's not like being at home. Wei Meili couldn't stop talking about modern things and didn't say anything good either. It was just Meimei and her father slacking off at home. Meimei consciously looked up at the sky. She doesn't have as thick a skin as her father. When her mother said, "I'm just your kind, lazy like you," her father even chuckled with pride. Forget it, she still needs to shut up and wait for her mother to cook. In ancient times, the seasoning was not very rich, let alone in the countryside. Wei Meili exchanged a little soy oil and some salt. Meimei remembered the vegetables her mother had taken out, including the fresh and tender Chinese tune head. Seeing it all replaced, Meimei felt a little heartbroken. In modern times, this Chinese tune head is precious, even a small handful in the supermarket costs tens of yuan. However, Wei Meili doesn't feel like she's at a disadvantage. Putting the Chinese tune head fresh for city people to eat now is really a native of the countryside. Isn't this just a seasonal wild vegetable? In Wei Meili's opinion, the only useful thing about this thing is to help her measure how the neighbors living nearby behave. The person next door, Aunt Wang, is quite nice and enthusiastic. Not only did she give me a small bowl of soy oil and some salt, but she also gave me this. Upon hearing Wei Meimei's words, Meimei leaned on her feet and looked towards the bottom of the basket, only to find a small wooden basin. Although not big, it is currently very useful for their family. Especially with noodles. Everything is ready, just wait for the fresh fried Chinese leek dumplings. The surface of the pure white dough gradually showed burnt yellow marks due to the high temperature of the pot, and the air was filled with the aroma of roasted wheat. The ceiling of the dough was soaked in a little bit of green juice, gradually spreading the fragrance of not only wheat but also chives in the air. Take a gentle sniff, as if inhaling the freshness of spring into your stomach. After taking a bite, the aroma of noodles mixed with the strange aroma of chives directly covered the impure salty taste of salt. The slightly hard shell with a burnt aroma contrasts sharply with the tender and soft filling inside. Plum berries, Mei Youqian. QAQ has finally had enough to eat. After a busy afternoon, the Plumberry family of 3 took their first serious meal from this time traveling. A meal, whether it was dinner or lunch, completely filled the entire Meimei family. After fried Chinese leek dumplings is served with a bowl of the light and sweet Chinese cabbage soup, 3 members of the family are not idle in sunset. There were still many bamboo poles that had been chopped back from the bamboo forest before. Mei Youqian sat in the yard and continued to toss. Meimei specifically asked what she wanted to do, and her father's answer was also very simple: make a bed board. The kitchen can be used in 3 rooms, and their family must sleep in the kitchen at night. At that time, the whole family can't sleep on the ground at night, can they? At this moment, Meimei remembered the extra bowls, chopsticks, and cups she had made. She planned to take the basket and send them to Meiyou's side for consumption. I don't know if it's because I've grown younger through time travel, and Meimei doesn't know that she's still a bit clingy. Finally, she and Wei Meili sent the tableware together. Looking at the wooden house nestled in the roadside forest leading to the back mountain, Meimei felt like a 3D modeled fairy tale cabin in the forest that she had seen online in her past life. The female protagonist has to praise the beauty of her choice of plum blossoms. Without waiting for Meimei and the others to admire for a moment, the gradually noisy harmony on the side of the wooden house courtyard seemed to have increased. What's going on over there? Obviously, Wei Meili also heard the argument over there and specially protected Meimei behind her, and the two of them cautiously approached towards that side. Before we could even take a few steps, the prompt sound from the system had already arrived. Host, please check in to clean up the scene of the top quality uncle. Name, you can get a 1-year lifespan and a nourishing blood gift package. Here we go. Surprisingly, it's a famous scene about lifespan rewards. The fried Chinese leek dumplings can be dry fried, or fried, all delicious given the current conditions. Their whole family is currently eating dry roasted food, which is not greasy and has a burnt aroma. Today at 520, give each little one a heart-to-heart comparison. Thank you, little one. 812 reward a flower. Something unexpected happened. I went on a trip to Hangzhou yesterday and bought a high-speed train to go home in the evening. However, when I arrived at the station, I found that I had bought it the next day. It exploded in an instant. I spent an extra money to stay in a hotel and have dinner. I rushed home this afternoon to catch TVT. Chapter 7. Human Low. Quality Males. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. A famous scene about lifespan. Surprisingly, it's still 1 year this time. Sleeping trough, has the pie suddenly fallen from the sky? Meimei's excitement even made her hold Wei Meimei's beautiful arm vigorously. Why is this, Meibao? Wei Meili felt her daughter's excitement and turned her head to see Meimei's eyes shining. Mom. Meimei whispered excitedly, it's a famous scene, this time it's a big prize, go. Because they had heard a sound earlier, the mother and daughter, who had been walking stealthily, suddenly became embroiled in the biggest reward and rushed towards the entrance of the wooden house courtyard in a fierce manner. Just to the surprise of both of them, there were only Mei Sanma and his big brother Mei Dahu in this family at this time. At this moment, both of them are standing in the yard, looking at their expressions as if they are not harmonious. When Meimei saw Meidahu, a constant stream of information about him flooded her mind. When we split up today, Mei Dahu from the big house was not there, and Wei Meili, who had gone around in her heart with relevant information, was even more infuriated. The two elders of the Mei family have simply implemented favoritism to the extreme. Mei Lao Er and Mei Lao San, the two brothers of cattle and horses, work tirelessly at home all day long for those few acres of land. Mei Lao De is fortunate. A few years ago, he was sent by Mei Lao to a famous carpenter in the town to learn his craft. The wind cannot blow and the rain cannot hit. Moreover, due to his honest behavior over the years, Carpenter Li has gradually taken him out to work and earn money since this year. Half a month ago, he followed Carpenter Li to work in the county again. It seems that the workmanship has returned now. Third, it's not that I'm talking about you. Even if our mother sells area, how could you make such a scene? You're so disobedient to them, you're unfilial. Oh. Meimei and her mother were just about to say hello, but upon hearing such a sentence, they felt like their spirits had been contaminated. Mei Dahu's nose is not his nose, his eyes are not his eyes, and he has been picking on things since he just came in. The location of the land where they live is not good, and it is easy for wild beasts to roam. Mei Sanma, who knew he was chopping firewood there, was too numb to say a word to respond to him. Mei Dahu was even more infuriated. Moreover, with the absence of the other two women at home at this time, Mei Dahu's words became even more carefree, and he relied on being a long-term wife to guide the country with great enthusiasm. If you want me to tell you, your daughter is just a troublemaker, and you still feel heartbroken. Why do you stand up for her to anger our mother and father? Have your conscience been eaten by the dog? You are not unaware of the situation at home. Yes, these past few years have been not very good. But it's not our family, it's because everyone's life is not easy. This is not bad for our family. When Lao Si becomes a scholar next year, it will be a sweet and bitter experience. Will the fourth person still remember your kindness when the time comes? Aren't you without a son? When the time comes to retire from the Miao family, our family will marry you another one. Miao is just a dilapidated household that has fled from famine and is difficult to raise at first glance. If it weren't for your age, how could our parents have been willing to spend 2 pounds of corn flour to buy you as a daughter-in-law during the disaster? Now thinking about it, with her bereaved appearance, it's possible that she's the one who's dragging you down, dragging our family down. Not to mention having a son, having a daughter is still a troublemaker persuading people to divorce their wives, heaven strikes and thunder strikes. Watching Mei Dahu's spittle fly and speak, I didn't really notice the arrival of Meimei and her companions, let alone the angry expression flashing in Mei Sanma's drooping eyebrows and eyes. If you can't bear to sell it directly to area, that's just right. My master and I were working in the county a few days ago, and I heard that a nobleman came over there. The new mansion is recruiting maids and women. When you arrive, let's find some way to send area to become a maid, sharpen your temper, not to mention earning money for you. In the future, when you have a son, this money will not be better than what to use to marry your son. Third brother, this is also for your own good. Mei Dahu thought she was drawing some beautiful pancakes there, and in the end, she was moved to say, for your own good, which disgusted the few people present. Wei Meili couldn't help but stand at the door with a strange yin-yang expression and said, "Hey, look at what you're saying, uncle. Why don't you send your daughter to your house for such a good thing? It's better than being an embroidery lady." Startled by the sudden female voice, Mei Dahu turned his head and saw Meimei's mother and daughter standing at the entrance of the small courtyard. Afraid that the other party wouldn't notice that she was mocking, Wei Meili even rolled her eyes at him directly. Wei Meili can't stand this big house that always sucks on her brother's blood and bone marrow to thrive. At this point, we still have to find faults in others. Seeing that it was from the second family, Mei Dahu even looked up behind the two of them, not seeing Mei Youqian, and breathed a slight sigh of relief in his heart. So he continued to show a disdainful and picky expression, very disdainful of Wei's beauty, and asked her in a very impolite tone, "What's the matter with your woman? Why did you come?" After he returned, he didn't miss hearing Zhang's words about the changes in the second couple this time. It's really a dog that can bite people and doesn't bark. It pretends to be more honest than anyone else in daily life, and when the second person catches the opportunity, he does things so brilliantly. Just like others, Mei Dahu doesn't think that only Mei Youqian can make a fuss about splitting the family. The third person's appearance is still the same today, so the second family must have put in a lot of effort in this separation matter. It's just that he didn't take the combat effectiveness of the second wife seriously before. Even if Jiang filed a lawsuit against him, he still believed it was a conflict between women. As a result, Mei Dahu was also annoyed when she saw that this woman dared to speak up directly at her. Undoubtedly, they are both husband and wife. They had hidden adultery at home before, so this true face of family separation is revealed, right? I don't know how Mei Dahu's inner thoughts are filling their family, but Wei Meili gave a strange and sinister tone. It's been a while since Uncle twisted the facts to deceive honest people. What do you call that from the second family? I just said that the Miao family cannot give birth to a son, and that the second daughter is a troublemaker. Isn't that true? They can't give birth to a son and do your damn thing. It's not that your son can't give birth to a son. You. Let me see, My third uncle's family's inability to have a child is your boss's problem. What's my problem? Mei Dahu never knew that this problem could still be blamed on him. Yes, you and your son eat and dress warmly every day, keep eggs, and our bodies are twice as healthy. What kind of life do the third younger siblings live at home? They are as thin as paper and still have children. A woman giving birth is like going to the gates of hell. If you really feel sorry for the lack of children in the third family, it's better to have one less meal a day with your son and let him come out to eat for the third family than anything else. Human low-quality males live up to their name. Why are you talking so badly, mother.in.law? He complained to his mother today that this second brother is very talkative, but now he realizes that these two siblings are also very talkative. Uncle, what are you talking about? I just said that you and your son ate too much, and your third brother and sister were squeezed by your family and couldn't eat enough. Aren't these facts? Wei Meili immediately learned to sell as soon as possible, using Mei Dahu's words to choke her. Shut up. Shut up. What's wrong? You can only say that you won't tell us. Those who don't know think you're the one suffering, watching the other person turn into an eggplant face with anger before they could even say a few words. Meimei immediately noticed that the man in front of her had an inverse relationship between his heart and figure. Let the other person continue speaking like this. Mei Dahu looked at Wei Meili's aggressive appearance, and suddenly lifted his hand and slapped her as if a string had suddenly broken in his head, about to hit someone. No one expected Mei Dahu to suddenly start hitting someone, which caught everyone off guard. Faced with the suddenly rushing and burly Mei Dahu, Wei Meili immediately turned around and pushed the Mei berry behind her out of the affected area. Mei Dahu. I am the eldest son of the old Mei family. Wei Meili. Well, you also have a share in the low-quality human eldest son Meimei. Low male. 8. Does Chapter 8 still include some parts for clocking in? You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Mom. In an instant, Meimei reached out her hand to grab and push away her mother, but she didn't catch anything. She couldn't stand steadily and took several steps back, only to suddenly feel a hand suddenly supporting her behind her as she watched as she was about to fall. Before she could stand still and turn around to see who it was, the gentle breeze brushed over Meimei's temples. There is still a faint smell of blood floating in the air. Immediately after, a scream came from Meimei's ear. Ah! It's Mei Dahu. Meimei turned her head and saw Mei-san Ma spreading his arms to block her mother. My mother stood in place, and there was only one Mei Dahu in the room, who was holding one of his arms and hunching over with a fierce and painful expression. Meimei quickly swept aside and saw the female lead who appeared in the yard at some point. At this moment, Mei was still holding a wooden stick stained with blood. The blood was dark and not new. Meimei breathed a sigh of relief and said that the female protagonist shouldn't have been as aggressive as before, poking the person to death with a stick. Uncle, I salute you. If you dare to incite my father to divorce and sell his daughter again, you can give it a try. Looking at the dried bloodstains on the wooden stick in Mei Yu's hand, Mei Dahu, who had originally planned to curse at Mei Yu, felt a chill for no reason. Mei Dahu, who was scared by Mei Yu, clearly wanted to retreat from here, but before leaving, Mei Dahu still glared at the people present with hatred. Meimei looked at the figure of the other person stumbling away, lost in thought. She is not the kind of person who chews and swallows slowly when reading novels. So much so that when it came to the world of this novel, Meimei was actually not as clear about many plot points. Mei Dahu has a little impression of Mei Dahu, but not much. However, she remembers seeing roast from her friends in the comment area of the novel at that time. This person seems very annoying. Just as Meimei wanted to recall more content, her thoughts were interrupted by the electronic sound of the department notifying her of a successful check.in. Congratulations to the host for checking in and receiving a 1-month lifespan and a basic blood and chi nourishing gift package. The gift package has been placed in the system backpack, please check it in a timely manner. Meimei. No, why do I still include some check.in? How come there are still check.in parts like this? Meimei anxiously asked the system and received a sentence from the system. You don't really think that seeing the female lead hit uncle with a stick can give you an extra year of life, do you? No, yes, right. The tone of disrespect and mockery immediately made Meimei's fist hard. Dog system. Meimei pondered the comparison between the total reward and the reward she had received, which clearly told her that there were still many demons to play behind Mei Dahu. Meimei couldn't help but feel regretful and asked, System, do you think I can pull the other party back now and let the female lead kill him directly? Host, this is a serious farming novel, not a reference book for the lawless maniac Zhang San. Plumberry. Besides, the top-quality cannon fodder is gone all at once. What's the benefit for you to clock in? Host, do you know what small water flows long means? Upon hearing the system say this, Meimei almost didn't get angry and laughed at. What kind of disgusting, flowing water is this? However, after joking with the system for a while, Meimei clearly felt that her mind had gradually calmed down. Meimei, who was previously scared out of sweat by Mei Dahu's sudden outburst, had a very fast heartbeat and a slight pain, but it seemed to have disappeared after the system released the reward. It seems that some of the negative states in her body gradually dissipate as she increases her lifespan. Meimei couldn't help feeling a bit depressed. On this first day of travel, she had already felt her body was in poor condition countless times. This is even worse than what kind of lucky newspaper animal she is what? This Mei Lao-san really can't beat a fart with 3 sticks. By then, I'll know to come up and block the blow instead of pouncing on him. The mother and daughter of Meimei, who returned from the last ray of sunset, told Mei Youqian about the incident where they accidentally bumped into Mei Dahu while giving a bowl and chopsticks today. When Mei Youqian found out that Mei Dahu was going to beat his wife again, he jumped up immediately and wished he could run out and beat Mei Dahu up. During this period, after being held by Wei Meili and Meimei, he still remembered to continue to bury 2 lines of Mei Sanma. Although Mei Sanma ultimately wanted to maintain Wei Meimei's beauty, his passive beating behavior allowed Mei Youqian to once again see Mei Sanma's cowardly bun temper. I'll go. No wonder their daughter is the protagonist, just this dad. Ha. No, I have to talk to him more next time. As a big man, why is he so bloodless? Alright, come on, you know how to make Mei Sanma beat people up and then what? Are you being misled by the group of people from the old Mei family again? Or are you not well prepared and will be beaten up by others when the time comes? Can you be more clever? Looking at the scene of Meimei's mother educating her father, she always felt that the scene was not quite right. Immediately after, Meimei heard her mother say, "Take me with you next time." Meimei. Your second to last lesson is the last to last one, right? As a result, her father really listened and quickly patted his thigh, promising, "Alright, next time I'll bring my 3rd brother to put on a burlap bag together, and you can just kick her along." Meimei. That. Mei Youqian said, besides having a gentle temper, I think the 3rd person is actually quite good. Give more education and education. Meimei. Yes, the person is pretty good, that. Wei Meili said, yes, the 3rd person is actually a good person, and there is also the 3rd person's wife. Both of them are quite good, but their temperament is not good. After talking for a while, Meimei realized that the others present had no intention of listening to her own advice, and in the end, she exploded, if we really want to play Mei Dahu, can we find the female lead together? At least we can still clock in. Great, join if you can't beat it. Mei Dahu, this person, she must give her a beating _. Oh, by the way, how was checking in today? Finally, their family's focus returned to system tasks. So, Meimei and her family of 3 sat on the bamboo bedboard made by Mei Youqian and finally began to review all the check.in activities of their family on the first day of travel. Especially the appearance and rewards of playing cards 3 times a day with Plumberry. At present, we still have 3.5 pounds of flour, 6 taels of silver, and a basic chi and blood pack that I just looked at, including 1 pound of red dates, 1 pound of longan, 1 pound of red beans, ½ pound of longan, and 1 pound of old brown sugar. Meimei did not include the items that came out of the old Meimei family, but only counted the rewards distributed by the system. Oh, there's still a lifespan. When it comes to lifespan, Mei Youqian and Wei Meili are really confused. What's the lifespan? Mei Youqian. What is the lifespan? Isn't my fate determined by me, not by heaven? Meimei. Dad, please be honest. Have you read some other novels on a regular basis? Chapter 9. Nighttime talks between two families. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. This time, both parents were present, and Meimei carefully explained the current situation of their family. The original short-lived canon fodder. Especially among this short-lived ghost family, the one who is so short and suspicious of life is undoubtedly Plumberry. The fact that two adults don't live long is mostly due to plot killing. Although they have suffered physical losses, their bodies are not as outrageous as those of Meimei. The system has actually vaguely pointed out the severity of Meimei's physical condition, and relying solely on food and exercise is not enough. Her body was naturally deficient, and she couldn't keep up with her nutrition in the later stages, so it was already quite difficult for her to live up to this age in disorder. Therefore, this game reward will add some additional rewards to strengthen the Plumberry body. According to the system's meaning, the two of you, mom and dad, can gradually improve your bodies through exercise and diet. Coupled with close interaction with the female lead in the later stage and more scenes related to the main storyline, it is definitely not a problem to live until the final outcome. When Meimei finished speaking, Mei Youqian and Wei Meili each reached out a hand and tightly grasped Meimei's hand, squeezing it hard, afraid that their daughter would pass by in the next second. I'm okay, I still have 2 more months to live. Meimei couldn't help comforting her nervously. 2 months is not 200 years, don't be so optimistic, just in case. Oh. Mei Youqian's disheartened words before he could finish were suddenly interrupted by his own wife using meat-pinching techniques. Mei Youqian. QAQ. Don't listen to your dad's nonsense. We should all eat, drink, and listen to the system. Our whole family can live to the end. Wei Meili, who glared at her husband, turned to comfort her daughter well. I will clock in well. Meimei suppressed a smile and nodded repeatedly. My parents will also help you clock in well. Mei's father and mother answered decisively, giving Meimei an unparalleled sense of security. However, Meimei's physical condition still caused some concern for the couple. Tomorrow when we go to town, let's see a doctor. Let's see a doctor. Regarding the health of his own child, Mei Youqian feels that he still needs to see a doctor to rest assured. Let's do the system tasks well and don't choose any rewards. It's best to do a few more to increase lifespan. Tomorrow, let's see what the doctor says, and we can't rely solely on the system. If we need any supplements or other things, we don't have to worry. If the silver given by the system is not enough, then we can find a way to earn it. Mei Youqian made a firm decision and said, by the way, tomorrow I will finalize the matter of the house and find someone to repair it. The weather will be sunny these days and it won't be much. If it rains, the roof may still leak. I can't drag it down. On the branches of the moon, a cool breeze gradually rises. Thanks to the bowls and chopsticks brought by Meimei in the evening, as well as a small handful of salt wrapped in bamboo shoots and leaves, otherwise Meiyu and his family would still have had some trouble eating tonight. The wooden house of the old hunter does not have a small kitchen. There is a small hanging stove in the hall of the wooden house, specifically used for grilling meat and stewing food. Tonight, Meiyu and his family of 3 will make cabbage, egg, noodle, and lump soup using pottery jars in a hanging furnace. Although there was no oil or water, tonight's meal was already particularly delicious for their family. Especially Mei Sanma, Meiyu knew he was in a good mood just by hearing the snoring of eating and swallowing. Just maybe only Mei Sanma is completely happy both physically and mentally, right? Mei Yu held the bowl and chewed it slowly without saying a word. She lowered her eyes and used the light of the firewood under the hanging stove to see a large piece of chicken protein in her bowl. This morning, they found a total of 2 eggs in the chicken coop behind the vegetable garden, one for each family. Nowadays, the vast majority of protein in an egg is in one's own bowl. Mei Yu occasionally looked up at her mother Miao, who was sitting on the ground across from her. She kept her head down and slowly ate the food in her bowl, without any reaction. Very lacking in presence. Just like this afternoon, when Mei Yu returned, she noticed that Miao was hiding not far away. Due to timidity, Miao, who had just finished washing vegetables, saw Mei Dahu standing in the yard and hid in the bushes by the roadside without daring to show her face. Mei Dahu's words today were not in a low voice, and Miao probably heard quite a bit. If it weren't for Aunt Air's voice, Mei Yu would have wanted to hear how this cheap father would react. Mei Yu didn't want to think too badly about Mei Sanma. After all, in the morning when he found out that he had been sold, such an honest and introverted person would erupt at that time and support his separation. However, the various experiences that Mei Yu had not experienced before made him unwilling to classify Mei Sanma as a truly good person. When Mei Yu first reached adulthood, it happened to be the outbreak of the zombie virus and the chaos of global biological evolution. She was the second one to be abandoned while the family was on the run. The first one to be abandoned was her mother. Mei Yu watched with her own eyes as her mother was pushed into the zombie tide behind her by her father. She didn't even have time to turn her head back, but was tightly held and taken away by her father. What was her mood at that time? Anger? Resentment? Or panic? Time was too long for Mei Yu to remember, and it wasn't even time for her to become so conflicted. Soon, she felt her father's hand protecting her loosen. She looked up and met her father, who was full of guilt and determination. Then she felt a heavy push on her shoulder, and the next second, her father and brother's backs seemed to accelerate and disappear from her sight. Later on, she luckily awakened her powers and crawled out of the zombie pile alone, living in such a harsh environment for several years. She had seen all kinds of people in those years. There are countless cases of Buddha's mouth, snake's heart, and hidden traitors inside. Tomorrow I'll go to town, let's go together at home. Just now, Mei Sanma, who was snoring and eating the soup in his bowl, put down his chopsticks and said this sentence. Coincidentally, the sudden cracking of the firewood under the pottery pot also brought the other people present to their senses. Miao and Mei Yu looked up at Mei Sanma when they heard his words, and they didn't know why he suddenly asked his family to go to town. Let's take care of the house. Miao put down the dishes and casually collected Mei Sanma's dishes together, gently tidying them up. Then she looked up and explained to Mei Sanma with a somewhat puzzled look, I just moved in. The house is very messy, and I'll be watching the house by myself while tidying it up. Arya, you can go with your father. Mei Yu didn't say anything, anyway she must have gone by herself. As for Miao, she voluntarily said she couldn't go. What could she say? Let's all go. However, Mei Sanma insisted that the whole family go. There are quite a few things missing at home, and I'm afraid I can't remember them so carefully alone. Arya is still young and can't carry anything. Also, both of you go and take a look, see if there are any additions you like to bring back. After all, just stay in your own home and enjoy it. After a long string of words, before Miao could open her mouth, Mei Sanma said again, spring and spring planting have just ended. I happen to check if there are any short-term jobs in the near future. It's okay about the money. The sky outside gradually darkened, and the flames in the stove inside the room gradually extinguished as dinner approached its end. Hidden in the darkness with the flames was Mei Sanma, whose face turned red from speaking so much in one breath. Mei Yu's complex gaze towards Mei Sanma and the tears unconsciously flowing from Miao's eyes. The personality of the female protagonist in the original work is related to her background before her travels. Her cold personality may be a bit cold, but when others treat her well, she will also strive to be kind to them. Without the appearance of the Meimei family, the kindness of the third house towards her will eventually allow her to integrate into this new family. However, due to the existence of Meimei and her family as catalysts, Mei's personality transformation will be much faster. 10. Chapter 10. Civet Cats. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Chapter 10. Civet Cats. Early in the morning, my father went out to find the village chief to get the land deed and build a house, so that when he arrived in the town, he wouldn't have to go blind again. As for how her father almost scared the village chief's wife, who woke up early to feed chickens, and almost fell down while lying at the doorstep of the courtyard with an overly silly and flattering smile, let's not mention it for now. And at this moment, my mother was not idle at home. Yesterday, the system sent some red dates, brown sugar, and Wei Meili wanted some plum berries early in the morning. Then, she cooked 3 red sweet soup in the pot. Red beans, red dates, and brown sugar, as her mother said, are all local remedies for nourishing qi and blood. Although the system says it can increase the lifespan of Meimei, Wei Meili and Mei Youqian still haven't given up on raising their own offspring in their own way. The system can increase life, can it increase meat? Just as Wei Meili was busy cooking sweet soup, Meimei was squatting in the yard with a beaver cat staring wide-eyed. Yesterday, her father said there was a civet cat in the kitchen that was taking care of the house. He was scared away yesterday, is that what he said? Meimei looked at the cute-looking cat crouching at the entrance of the yard, with its small head tilted and its round blue eyes staring at her for a long time, and immediately made Meimei cute. Meow. By a stroke of fate, Meimei meowed at the pear blossom cat. Civet cats equals I don't know if it was Meimei's illusion, but she saw the cat's round little head slightly straightened when it looked at her, and its just round eyes were now squinting. The eyes that were squinting were filled with contempt. Meimei. What's going on? Does my appearance not conform to the aesthetic of a cat's fecal digger? Just as Meimei was doing her own PUA, outside the small courtyard, there was a whistling sound from her father who was in a good mood. The civet cat quickly ran out upon hearing the sound. Sigh. Meimei couldn't help but shout at the place where the civet cat had disappeared, but unfortunately, only her father's big feet were standing where the cat had just squatted. Daughter, what are you doing? Are you welcoming your dad? After receiving the documents from the village chief, Mei Youqian's mood did not deteriorate. As soon as he entered the courtyard, he stood in front of his daughter and reached out to lift her up from the ground. Meimei. Meimei. Dad, you let me down. As the size of her father's fitness equipment, Meimei has not been treated like this for many years, which scared her and made her scream. The key is that her father is still foolishly happy. Upon hearing the commotion, Wei Meili immediately grabbed the small bamboo pole that had not been cleaned up last night and chased her father around the stone table in the yard, throwing it at her. Do you still think of yourself as having 8 abdominal muscles? What if your body is weak and you drop your daughter? How could I possibly be empty? I'm fine. Ouch, stop hitting me. Early in the morning, the day of the Meimei family started with such a flurry of chickens and dogs. In the end, this farce ended with Meimei's father pleading for mercy and admitting his mistake, and the family drank the sweet soup that Meimei's mother had cooked all morning. The red beans were cooked with sand, and the soft and glutinous red dates were completely 2 different flavors alternating in my mouth. The bowl of plum berries in my stomach felt like I was warm all over, and my slightly drowsy head woke up in the morning. At the end, Wei Meili still put the remaining pot in a bamboo tube and let the plum berries drink along the way. Before the whole family was ready to go, Wei Meili didn't forget to turn around and stare at the currently dilapidated house that could be used as a filming location for horror movies. Then she remembered something. Buy a lock, husband. Remember to buy 2 locks when we go to town. The door locks on this house are all broken. Wei Meili's words reminded Meimei that there seems to be a plot about the door lock in the original work. In the original work, the female protagonist's family went to the street and upon returning home, they discovered that their home had been robbed. All the dozens of pounds of grain that came out of their family branch were stolen. Thinking of this plot, Meimei had a vague prediction in her heart about today's check.in time and location. "Girl, what's wrong? You're sunbathing." Their village is 8 miles away from the nearest town of Lihu. When Meimei was in good health, she never tried to walk so far at once, let alone now that her body is not strong. When she couldn't walk out a mile, she was carried by her own father. Along the way, Mei Youqian noticed that his own daughter, who was lying on his back, seemed very silent, and then he began to ask. "If you're feeling unwell, tell Dad and Mom." Mei Youqian, who was not at ease, added another sentence. "No, I just remembered a plot from a novel." Meimei slowly spoke out all the plot she remembered. When Wei Meili heard that Jiang and Mrs. Zhang had stolen the food from the mistress's house, she cursed shamelessly and gained a new understanding of the top quality of the old Mei family. Turning to Wei Meili, she patted her thigh and remembered, "Ah, how did you say that? What should we do with our food?" "Last night, Mom, weren't you afraid of mice asking me to take the food into the system space?" Meimei reminded Wei Meili that they had already loaded the grain into the system space last night. Because the system has also agreed to provide space for the Plumberry family to store things. However, except for rewards distributed by the system that can be stored unconditionally in the system space, the system only provides 100 cubic meters of space for things received from outside. Upon being reminded by Meimei, Wei Meili's heart, which had just been lifted, returned to her stomach and praised Meimei's speed in handling affairs. "That means even if someone flips over our house, there's nothing we can flip over, right?" Everyone put their hearts back into their stomachs, but then they didn't know what Mei Youqian had thought of and mentioned such a sentence. Before Meimei could answer, she heard her father suddenly burst into a lewd smile. "Dad!" Meimei was not sure if her father was holding back something big, but she shouted and heard Mei Youqian's expression calm down. Mei Youqian cleared her throat with a cough and coaxed her, saying, "Well, Mei Bao, please tell Dad more about it. What did the female lead and her family do when they found out they had run out of food?" On the other hand, today Mei Yu and his family got up very early and rushed towards Lishui town almost before dawn. There was no other reason. Yesterday, Mei Yu picked up a dying deer on the mountain, and it wasn't until their family finished dinner that Mei Yu pulled out the deer hidden in the thorny bushes behind their house. According to Mei Yu's description, this deer somehow got the wild boar arched and rolled down the slope, causing serious injuries. It was only then that Mei Yu, who was planning to dig some wild vegetables at the foot of the mountain, picked up a big bargain. Therefore, in order not to disturb the people in the village, their family went to the town before dawn and sold this deer to a restaurant in the town. I don't know if it's for sale, but when I found out that this deer was sold for 10 taels of silver, Mei Sanma and his team blushed with excitement. "Oh my goodness, this deer is not half as heavy as a pig, why is it even more expensive than a pig?" After receiving the money, the family of 3 left the restaurant a long way away. It was only then that Miao dared to take a deep breath and say such words. "I've heard from those who collect mountain goods about this deer. Its meat is extremely delicious and also very nourishing. Some landlords in the city like this one." As Mei Sanma explained, he couldn't help but marvel at the sudden addition of so much silver. Yesterday afternoon when he was chopping firewood, he was still pondering about his part-time job and feeling distressed. After all, we have just separated and there are many places where we are short of money, but the sudden increase in money today is undoubtedly a windfall. Mei Yu on the side didn't know if it was intentional or unintentional. She didn't mention the ownership of the silver, just looked up at Mei Sanma and asked, "Dad, how do you think this silver should be spent?" Mei Sanma: "I don't know how to spend _3 angle _, but it's definitely right to give it to my own family." End of this chapter.